with camphor, which comes from the wood.
Hey, Susan.
Yeah.
Hey, it looks like we're going to be delayed to about 5:30, so I don't know what it. I mean, you can stay logged in, of course. We're going to keep this open, but the meeting should start about 5:30.
What's the delay?
Apparently, City Hall was evacuated because of a suspicious package.
Oh,
And
good heavens. Good heavens. Okay. I'll log off. Well, let's see. What happens if I log off? Can I get back on the same way, or should I maybe I'll just leave it open and I'll go walk around.
just stay on. We'll be fine. Yeah, you'll just stay logged in. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll leave it alone. Thank you.
You bet. I know.
Okay. Well, that's exciting.
Hey, Michelle? Michelle? Well, if you can, Michelle, if you can hear me, we're going to start about 5:30. There's been a bit of a delay. So it looks like you don't have your mic on or at least available. So hopefully you can hear me. We're just going to have a little late start today. So just, but you can stay logged in. That'd be just fine.
Hey, Daniel. Mike.
Hello. So City Hall is still standing?
You know, I actually don't know. Yeah, but when the police chief comes up and tells you they have a suspicious package, probably nothing, but best to leave the building immediately. You tend to leave immediately.
Yeah, wow.
But luckily we're set up for this, so I can come home and still do the meeting.
Excellent.
This would not have been possible pre-COVID.
Hello.
Yeah, I was going to say, Daniel, I do all my meetings from home. So for me, it'd be very strange to go into the office to do one. Hasn't happened in, I don't know, a year.
Yeah.
We'll wait just another minute and we'll get started.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but can't see you.
Yeah, that's what I'm experiencing. I can hear you guys, but I can't see myself. What am I supposed to do?
And I don't see Laura connected at all.
I just talked to her a few minutes. She said she was going to be back on.
Okay.
Susan, I see that your camera is off.
Say that again, Daniel.
I see that your camera is off.
Camera is off. Oh dear. I'll try to figure this out.
There should be a button that says start video.
Okay, just a second.
Usually in the lower left corner, Susan.
Start my video. Does that work?
It looks like it's starting to work, maybe.
Hello? Oh,
There you
There
go.
you are.
Yeah. Excellent.
Laura is aware of the delay, and she said she sent a message in to Corinne, and she thought she had posted it to everyone, but she wasn't sure.
Yeah, I saw it. I think it went to everybody too.
Good.
All right. Should
I've
we give
got
her a
my
minute and hope
cell.
she's going?
Come on, Laura.
We can wait a minute. Just, I know it's connectivity. We've had issues in the past, but let's wait a minute, see if we can get her on.
Cecil, are you there, or is it Ryan?
It's Cecil.
It's Cecil. I'm here.
Hi, Cecil. I'm getting a text from our applicant, Michelle.
Yes.
She says that we can't hear her and that she can't display her video.
Huh. Okay. I see her. I see that she's on the telephone, but let me see what controls I have for her.
Okay.
I sent her and asked to start video. So I couldn't explain, I guess, why we can't.
Oh, I see them.
Yep, I see him now.
Hello.
There we go.
Can't hear you though.
Still can't hear them.
Michelle, it looks like that your computer. There you go. All right. Looks like, well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Perfect.
So we were waiting for one more member.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just, because we got a couple of organizational things to get through, why don't we go ahead and call the board meeting to order? Could we have the roll call, please?
Right list here. Okay, Board Member Blake,
Yes, I'm here.
Board Member Walter, or Vice Chair,
Sorry, here.
and Chair Folks.
Here.
Member Blake is not here, but expected shortly.
More, right? Yep. Great. So we have a quorum. So why don't we move forward? Are there any agenda modifications or postponements that board members or staff has?
No, not. No.
I have none.
Okay, great. So approval of the minutes. In your packets, you have the January 27th, 2021 minutes. As always, very well detailed. I'm always impressed to read how Corinne makes me look smarter than I am normally. So thank you. And are there any additions or corrections?
No.
None for me.
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes for the January 27th, 2021 meeting.
I'll second that.
Great. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Blake,
Aye.
Vice Chair Walter,
Aye.
Chair Folks.
Aye. Wonderful. Thank you. And now we have oral communications. This portion is reserved for individuals wishing to address the board on matters of community interest not on the agenda. Is there anyone, I don't see anyone, but anyone who'd like to speak on items not on the agenda? All righty. Then let's move along to board and staff announcements.
I have two. The first one was that I promoted the historic app on Nextdoor and got a lot of positive responses. And I actually saw some folks walking around with their phones pointing out various buildings from it. So that was really nice to get. And then the second thing that I wanted to let you know is that I recently inspected and cleaned all 15 of the historic plaques in and around downtown, and they're all in great shape. No graffiti. They're tough as nails. They're doing great. So that's it.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you for that service. That's wonderful. Any other announcements from board members or from staff?
So I did include in your packet the materials that we received for the conditional use permit to relocate the folk Victorian structure from 1940 Hamilton to the neighboring church property. So that application has been taken in. It's pending payment, but that's a shortcoming, I understand. That will go to the Planning Commission. Should be a fairly quick decision since the church simply wants to use it as their administrative office. And with that, then the property will be vacant and suitable for future development without destruction of this building.
Okay.
Very
Any
happy.
comment on that? I'm very pleased with this outcome. As some of you may recall, we pleaded with the owner not to tear the building down, try to find a way to have somebody move it and take care of it. And apparently that happened. This particular house is part of the history of our city. And it is important for us to try to preserve rather than replace something like this. It's a good example, I think, of adaptive reuse. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on that item?
No, I was
That'll
in terms of plaques. Board Member Blake's commented to remind me that we actually found a plaque, a brass, one of the old landmark brass plaques for the Gilman House. That's the yellow chiropractor's office, just kitty corner from City Hall.
It's been installed.
Yeah, so we gave the plaque to the doctor and he installed it.
I saw it. Very cool. Thank you.
I don't know why we had it, but it's been sitting in a drawer for 20 years.
Somebody forgot, I guess.
Apparently.
Well, thank you. Look forward to seeing that that project, and nice that they're able to use it in such a good fashion.
I'm going to interject. Laura, I'm sorry, Laura isn't on. She's done a lot of research on this old building and she did want to share out on the history of it and why she thinks it's very important to the city. It was originally that was called the Hamilton District before it became part of Campbell, and the Campbells actually bought it from the Hamilton family way back when. So it goes back a long ways. So hopefully she'll be able to share that out with us at some time.
She's actually on Outlook right now. I just told her to click on the Zoom link through Corinne's email. So
Okay.
I'm hoping she can figure that out here in a minute.
All right.
All right. Well, I'd love for her to be on for the public hearing. So while we're talking about board and staff announcements, are there? I know we talked last time about the app and about the ability to maybe refresh, maybe add more content on that. Daniel, is that something that we may want to agendize for a future meeting, or is that something that just given budget and staffing and COVID, it's not worth talking about?
So following the previous meeting where we discussed potential work plan items, I did provide the two items that we discussed, both the refreshing the app and also formalizing the Mills Act update to the director. And so that information was then forwarded to the city manager. So as part of the upcoming budget discussion with the city council, that'll be for them to decide if that's something they want to authorize, staff
Great.
time and expenditure to be done.
Great. Okay. Great.
I did have an opportunity to speak with Mayor Gibbons. I think it was yesterday, and there are some considerable challenges with the budget constraints right now. So because of the economy and COVID. So.
Well, Sacramento's got a big surplus. They should just give some.
Yeah, come on. Hand it down.
Yeah, they have so much money up there. They may have to give it back to the taxpayers, which is hasn't been done in a long time. All right. Well, I know we have our applicants here, and I know we've started late, so I don't want to keep them. So why don't we go ahead and hopefully Laura can join us shortly and move into item number 3, public hearing on 20 Alice Avenue.
Okay, so give me one moment here. Okay. All right, so this is a request for a modification to a previously approved historic research alteration permit that was approved last year for 20 Alice Avenue. This is a current photo of the property that I took today. The approval from last year was for an addition. These are the approved plans included in your packet. The addition was located at the rear of the property. Apologies, here's acting up. At the rear of the property along an existing building line. Was found consistent with the applicable guidelines. Consistent with those guidelines, the plans did show the, let's see right here. Did show that the new wood siding would be wider than the original. As the board is aware, we do have requirements that speak to differentiating new building materials from existing so that the historic integrity of the structure may be maintained. I did conduct a site visit a few weeks ago with the homeowners, and they conveyed a desire to use stucco in lieu of the siding, and also remove the existing siding from the home. I did express that that would be concerning, likely conflict with the applicable standards that govern the treatment of historic properties. But we did agree to allow a request for a modification to be processed quickly and put it onto this agenda. So as discussed more in your staff report, from staff's perspective, the historic design guidelines that the city has adopted, as well as the Secretary of Interior guidelines, speaks strongly to both retaining existing building materials and also differentiating additions from existing structures. So this proposal would seem to conflict with both of those in that it would remove existing materials and also results in a building that just looks all cohesive with a single building material, and you would lose that differentiation of existing and new. And because of staff's inability to meet the findings necessary to approve a modification to the historic resource alteration permit, staff is recommending denial of the applicant's request. Attachment 1 is a draft resolution for denial. However, the board, of course, may come to a different conclusion, and so as not to forestall that opportunity or to delay this project unnecessarily, I have prepared a draft placeholder resolution for approval that could be used by the board should you wish to take a different action. That resolution could be used to approve the applicant's request in whole, to allow the whole building to be stuccoed, or just to allow a portion of the rear addition to be stucco while maintaining the existing siding, or potentially allow removal of the existing siding so that the home may be insulated. As the applicant's letter indicates, a lot of this has to do with simply insulating the house and ensure that it can be adequately heated and cooled in a cost-efficient manner. So in that context, the one option for the board to consider, but again, not recommended by staff, would be to remove the siding, allow the insulation to be installed, and then effectively reapply the siding, or if that's even possible, or allow new siding that more or less mimics the current appearance so that the visual from the street is less impacted. But again, those are alternatives for the board to consider, but staff's recommendation is for denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for the thorough report. As I was reading through it, I didn't quite realize there were several possible resolutions, so I was getting very confused, but they're all very well written, so I appreciate all that work. That's a lot of work. Before we go to questions, can we hear from the applicant?
Sure. Thank you in advance for considering my request. Hopefully you all had an opportunity to review the letter that I provided that states the reasons that I'm seeking to put the stucco on the house. One quick clarification, the contractor that I'm using has actually suggested that I put the stucco over top of the existing siding. The reason for that being that right now, there is no insulation in the walls of the existing home. It's essentially the frame, and then there's the plaster on the inside because it's a very old house, and then there's the frame itself, and then there's the siding straight on top of chicken wire. There's no actual insulation in my walls. And as a result of that, my heating and cooling bills for a 900 square foot house have been upwards of $400 a month, and that, it's just not really energy efficient. So what he's recommending to increase the energy efficiency and reduce the, electricity and heating costs is to actually put the stucco on top of the existing siding to create an extra layer of insulation. And in that way, with the addition that I've added in the back that does have insulation in the walls now, with those two things working together, it should improve the overall heating efficiency for the entire home. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that none of the siding will actually be removed from the existing home. It will be, there will be an additional layer of stucco to provide the insulation, because absent that, we wouldn't actually get the real benefits of adding the stucco layer. You know, there's an alternative to that, you know, stucco, and that would be, if we were trying to get to the, you know, reduced costs of and energy use on the environment and everything, and that would be removing all of the siding, as Daniel had suggested, and blowing in insulation, which according to my contractor will cost me, you know, tens of thousands of dollars and cause damage to the existing interior and exterior of the home. And of course, I've kind of gone out of my way to keep everything in the interior of my home existing as it's been from 1939, including the fireplace and the kitchen. The kitchen is entirely the way it was from 1939. I've left all of the old, you know, sort of like vintage looking things in my house intentionally so. And to do that kind of damage to the interior and exterior of the home, to me, not only will it cause me a significant financial expense that I cannot endure after spending all this money on the addition, but it's also going to destroy some of the things I've tried to keep in place in the internal part of the home. And so I'm also worried about how it's going to impact, you know, the electrical and the plumbing and all of that. And there could be some unforeseen issues in terms of doing that. Demolition, right? Because it really would be a huge demolition to blow the insulation, which most people have in their houses that are built, you know, with insulation. If we were to go back in time and try to do that now, it will cause significant impact to the existing home. So I'm requesting we don't go down that route. The other reasoning that I've provided is, you know, a few things. You know, my house is it's the house right next to Winchester, right after the salon. And so you can actually see my house from the Winchester Street. People walking down that street, you know, they can like look over my fence and see what my house looks like. And the only wood siding that my contractor was able to come up with is not just a little bit bigger than the existing wood siding that's on the home, it's double the size.
And thicker as well.
And thicker. Yeah. And so it's not, while at the beginning of this project, we had thought that we might be able to find a wood siding that was, you know, a little bit bigger, but not significantly bigger so that it looks like an eyesore. The reality is that now that he's gone and looked for wood siding that would, you know, replicate the wood siding that I have, it's going to be double the size of the existing panel that's on the home. And I believe it will look like an eyesore from the street and decrease the value of the entire Alice community. Unfortunately, the only other option is to have all of the siding custom made to be, you know, a little bit bigger, but it's going to come at substantial costs to my contractor. Not like I'm trying to decrease his cost, but from the outset, neither of us knew that when we were going to have to find siding, we did not know that the siding that was going to be available was going to be double the size of what's existing on the home. And, you know, maybe we should have had the foresight, but I'm a novice when it comes to these sort of projects. This is the first time I've ever built on an addition to my home. And so I just, it wasn't foreseeable to me that this would be an issue. That together with what, you know, he's telling me in terms of keeping my house insulated, just, you know, is the reason for my request, because like I said, it's not an energy efficient home. It was built in 1939. The original owners did not put insulation on the inside of the house. I had to not only did I have to completely revamp the house, it had no appliances when I moved in. It didn't have a furnace. It didn't have an air conditioner. I had to redo all the electric. I've spent significant expense in not only trying to make this house valuable and increase the value of the entire Alice community, but to be forced now to, be in a position where I have to spend, a ridiculous amount of money to either blast out the sides of my house to put insulation into it, to destroying the outside and interior of the home. We've already been not able to live in the full house for over a year and a half due to COVID concerns and all of this. And if we were to do the whole blowing the insulation into the exterior of the existing home, we'd then be forced just to live in the addition. I have 4 children. I live with my fiance's 2 children. I have 2 children of my own and a dog, and we've been living in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home for over a year and a half. And so I'm requesting that we not be forced to bear any additional delays in terms of getting the exterior siding custom made, or the additional expense after, everything that, all the money I've tried to put into this home. I'm just really hoping that you'll consider my request. I intend, as I have with the interior of the home and the exterior of the home, to keep all of the outside look of the home otherwise the same, including the shutters and including the awning that's on the front of the house. The house is a very cute farmhouse sort of style. You'll see I put a farm on the upboard part of the exterior of the home, kind of replicating the fact that I appreciate that about the home. And I intend on keeping all of that area the same as well. So really what we're talking about is just covering the existing wood panel with stucco to increase the energy efficiency, decrease the cost of trying to keep the house, warm in the winter, cool in the summer. I've gotten letters from PG&E telling me that I need to do something about this because my electric bill is out of line for what it should be. I haven't been able to do anything about it until now, and until I talked to my contractor, and he suggested that if I really wanted to increase the energy efficiency of my home, that this is something that I could do to make that happen. And so I'm hoping that you'll consider my request and take into consideration all the different rationale that I've laid out in terms of, the decrease of the value to the home if I'm forced to put on a double, double the size of the siding, which I wasn't expecting. The cost of having to, blow out the walls if I'm forced to put insulation in instead of going the stucco route. Also, the delays in having to have the custom and the additional cost and delays in having to have the custom siding made. I've already been working on this project since September of 2019 and having my 4 children, 2 adults live in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. My daughter's moving home from college in May. I was hoping that it would her virtual college anyway. I was hoping that it would be done so that she can move into her room. I really don't know what I'm going to do in terms of her living space. If I can't get this completed and we have to go down the route of having, custom made wood siding to make it not look like an eyesore for the community.
One additional thing I just wanted to add is we take a lot of walks down Alice Avenue. I'm not sure if any of you have had the chance, but if you walk down the street, it is a beautiful street. A lot of the houses on the street have the same kind of shutters around the windows and the kind of curtained wood paneling above the archways. And what a lot of people have is stucco. behind those fixtures. So it still has a beautiful historic look to it, but it just has the stucco. And I'm not sure if some of those are original and they've just kept it that way or what the story is, but it wouldn't be out of line for the street. There's at least 8 homes on the street that have stucco and still have preserved that historic look to them. So just something else to consider as well.
And get your name, sir?
James McKinney.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
You're on mute.
All right, I was on mute. Yeah, I'd do that. Sorry about that. Thank you. I appreciate your explanation, and we've all reviewed the letter in the packet. I did want to, before we go to questions, I did want to note that member Moore has joined us. So, hey, Laura, welcome. So we're up to full strength, at least as on the board. So far, we're down 1 member, but hopefully we'll get that position filled. So let's move to questions of the applicants. Anyone like to start?
Sure, I'll jump. Susan, you want to talk? You're not. We can't hear you, Susan.
Oh, okay, I'm back.
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go ahead and jump in.
I am going to jump in because I have something significant I want to say. I cannot support the replacement of the wood siding with stucco. However, I do understand your need for better insulation. It's an intolerable situation that you're dealing with right now. I have a potential solution, and I'm glad you brought up blown insulation. I have a historic home too, and it has the same kind of siding that you have. And I would ask you to get some more information about it. It does not involve removing any of the wood siding. And I can give you a firsthand account of how it was done on our house. Our house was built in 1874, so it's even older than yours. I can tell you a little bit about how it works. The insulation, first of all, is made from shredded denim, like old blue jeans and stuff, and small little like quarter size holes are drilled into the siding in between the studs, and the stuff is forced in vertically like this between each one of the studs from the ground up to the roof line. And then they seal it back up and they putty it over and they paint it, and you never even know that it happened. And it doesn't involve going from the inside and damaging whatever your walls are. Ours are lath and plaster. So it does improve insulation significantly. And I will also tell you something that we found surprising, and that is that we live on a busy street like you do, and it significantly reduced the noise from street traffic for us. And because you're only 1 block off of Winchester, I'm sure that would be a good thing. It will save the siding. It is safe, and I don't believe it is expensive as some of the alternatives that have been suggested. We used a company called Universal Insulation and Building, and they're located on Dell Avenue here in Campbell. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about this and give you more information, answer any questions you have, come over and talk to you about it, or you can come over and look at our house and see what they did. I actually even have a sample left of the stuff they put in there. So yeah, I'm hoping this is a helpful solution to the problem that will save you some time, save you some money, and save the house. So that's it.
I think that's still, that does help. Thank you so much for that. I think it helps. It still doesn't solve the issue I have regarding like having to have the siding custom made, and
you can
or alternatively have
you can
what's
keep
that?
the existing siding, the siding that's out there, unless it's rotten wood.
She's talking about the addition, Susan.
The addition.
Yeah, to clarify, I added an 800 square foot addition. And so my contractor is telling me that the only wood siding that is available is twice the size of the existing and is thicker than the existing. So it's not going to look like remotely good. It'll look like somebody tried to do something on the cheap, essentially, because it's not going to match at all. And you'll be able to see it from the street. Unless we get it custom made, right? Unless I have somebody custom make the siding, wood siding that's the same or a little bit bigger side
What about a little
size
bit
than
smaller? A little bit smaller?
smaller. It would still have to be custom made, yeah.
We've been able to replace boards on our old house without having it be custom made. So I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Side panels. I can see the side panels if those are it right there on the house. Is that your house?
That's pretty new
Okay.
construction though. That's on the deck. So,
Our side panels are extremely different than that.
okay.
It's got these little nuances kind of like in them, so they're not just like straight.
It's called shiplap. They go on top of one another. They fit. Yeah, ours do too.
Yeah. Okay.
So if I can jump in with a few. Sorry, you cut out, sir.
We're just going on what the contractor has brought for us and told us that was available that he was able to find.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. I along with member Blake cannot agree to the stucco replacement because that will totally destroy the character of your house. And the house was designed to have a wood siding finish, and you're on a historic street. And the other stucco plaster finishes you're seeing on the other houses, that's what the original design was on those houses. So those weren't ones that they came back and added stucco in later years, unless they were approved to do it back in maybe the 40s or 50s. But if they were original, I just looked at the Google Earth, and all the ones near your house, that was part of the original charm of those homes. They were Spanish influenced styles and designs that had the plaster finish. Some have an old world finish on it, so you see that undulation on the outside, but that was all the charm. So that's why you see other different materials on your street. Unfortunately, your house, like other houses, have the siding component on it. And any other neighbor that would come in and want to switch from siding to stucco on that street, we as a board would probably not agree to that, because that's not the design intent and the charm and the character of those houses. Now, question I would also want to get clarification is that you were saying the siding on the addition, you couldn't find the material to match or whatever. And I just want to be clear, we don't want you to match the siding on your addition. We want the addition to look like it's something different. I don't know if you remember when you came in, we don't want, if your siding in front is a 6-inch profile, we don't want a 6-inch profile on your addition, so that afterwards your house looks like one big building. We want the siding on their addition to be a different shape, a different style, so that people know that that's an addition to your original historic home. And I was looking back at pictures of your building house, and the siding that you have currently looks quite large as it is. So when you were saying the siding on your addition would be twice as big, are you saying the siding is going to be like a 12-inch high profile?
I think it's 8. Do you remember, babe? Do we have it? I think it's 8 inches. Our contractor brought us a piece of it. Do you have a piece of, do you know where he put that?
Yeah. I was looking at, in our packet, there's a picture of a blown up picture of your house, the existing siding, with a picture of somebody's hand holding up a siding next to it. And I don't know if that picture is the new siding for the addition. And if it is, it's actually smaller than the siding that's on your house. Your siding on your house is looks like a shiplap style, but it's got a groove down the middle to break up the shape of it, unless this is a picture of something else that I'm not aware of.
I can add there. So that was actually my hand. So that was the sample siding that the contractor gave me on a site visit.
Okay, so Daniel, can you explain in that picture the siding that's currently on their house? Looks like a groove down the middle of each panel. So is each panel one panel with a groove, or is it actually 2 panels that butt each other?
You know, it appears to be a single panel with a groove, but I didn't look that closely.
Okay.
The applicant held up 2 fingers like it's too hard to see.
Can you guys see? This is the wood panel that my contractor brought, which was the closest thing he could find.
Okay.
I think that the confusion may be that the smaller one is actually the new one that we're putting on, but it's actually the reverse. This one would be the bigger one would be the new panel, and the smaller one's the one that's on the existing home.
Yeah, 'cause-
it may be one.
You cut out.
You cut out again.
Sorry, it may be one like Daniel you were suggesting, but that groove to me it looked like it was it is one panel. It's just slightly bigger, but it's made to look like it separates there in the groove. But I think you're right. It is just one.
Because in the pictures, and I don't know if Daniel, if you have a moment here, if you can pull up a picture of their house and zoom in for us, but the picture I'm looking at, even if it's two pieces that are butting together, the overall intent from the design is it's one wide panel. And right now, from looking at it, it looks like it's almost, yeah, there's a good picture. It looks like it's almost eight inches to almost a foot, probably 8 to 10 inches in elevation. So if you're looking for a replacement piece, you should be able to find something that's smaller to get the profile and get something different that would still be siding and that like what you have in your hand. Because in the picture that Daniel had, that siding you're showing up in your Zoom, yeah, right there, it's smaller than your existing siding.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It is smaller. It's not you're looking at the two pieces like put together versus just the one.
Exactly.
But if you look at it, would you want that inconsistency on the outside of your home?
Well, the problem is this not problem, but what you have is you have a historic home and you're trying to do an addition. And per the Secretaries of Interior's requirements, when you do an addition, the intent is not to make it match. If you have a house anywhere else in a non-historical area, yes, an owner might say, hey, I want to do an addition and I want to do whatever siding or stucco, whatever material in my main house, I want to do an addition and I want it to blend in and make it all look the same. But when you have a historical home, the intent is that the additions are to look different so that people know that that's something different and it's not competing against the historic home. And so that's what we're having to grapple with your request on the stucco, because the stucco would completely change the look altogether. And then from a siding standpoint, we're not trying to get you to match the existing siding. It's to have siding so the material is similar, but the profile is different.
I totally understand the historic rationale behind it for sure. I mean, I knew when I bought this house, I'd be, buying a historic home. As I said, I've done all I can do to try to keep my house as it was when it was built in 1939. However, all of the other houses on the street really look nice. And I'm kind of embarrassed for my neighbors to have my house not look as nice as theirs because of the requirement.
Your house looks great, and when you paint it and everything and you're all done, it'll look great and it'll look charming and everything that you have there.
I mean, if you look at the house next door, it's obvious that it is a more modern looking home, and it's obvious that it wasn't an original build, and it's covered in beautiful brand new stucco. So I mean,
I don't want to. I want to make sure that you guys can answer all the questions, but I also want to make sure we let the board members get all their questions in. So I don't know if Member Moore, if you had any questions you wanted to ask the applicants. Oh, and you're on mute too. Sorry, Laura, you're on mute.
You're on mute. Go down to the bottom of your screen.
Okay.
Okay,
Here I am. So of course I have an old house too, and it has wide boards, but I'm sure they're a different one than you have. I think they were actually able to find them at Economy Lumber, which is unusual, but I was looking for a picture of the addition just so I could tell if you're looking at the front of your house, what the juxtaposition of the original to the addition is, to see how it would be offset. I mean, paint does cover up a lot. It's hard to look at it when it's been a rough project for this time. And believe me, I understand. I'm in the same position most of the time myself. So I do think it's possible. I'm kind of surprised that your contractor can't come up with anything closer, but I actually think that one, the one that he found that's smaller, would be fine, dependent on what it looks like from the front, from the street view, where the addition is. Because I am looking at a picture of probably the original house and not the addition. So is there a picture of the addition in my 72 pages?
It's not a picture, Laura, it's a drawing.
Okay. Do you have a page number?
You have to scroll through it. I don't remember what page it is.
Okay.
It's all in there. There's a bunch of architectural drawings. It's the same drawings that they provided to us last year when they came in the first time.
Okay.
And you have to look down the driveway. If you're standing on Ellis Avenue, you looked on the driveway, the addition, you could see towards the back on the right side, but it's not a standout issue. I mean, it's not.
Right. So if you're looking at the front of the house, it looks like this now with the gray and the shutters and the porch.
You're not going to see the addition from the street, Laura, just so you know.
Yeah, so this is
So
the photo I
it'd
took
probably
today.
be fine. Who would see it? How would it? It's probably something that you're going to notice because you have been dealing with it so intensely. But once it's done and put together, it probably won't be noticeable.
Well, and you have it gated. I mean, it's fenced, so you have more privacy. So you can't see it from the street unless you leave the gate open.
I mean, you can see it over the fence. I mean, it's the first home, and the salon doesn't cover it up, so you can see it from the street because I'm just right off of Winchester. So if you're looking at it, yeah, you definitely notice that there is significant difference in the significant, not just nominal like that was originally in the drawings, but significant difference in the siding.
And if I can ask back on kind of what Susan was asking too about the blown insulation, which is a very common practice, whether exterior or interior, they can do it with a very small hole in the siding, and then they patch it and you sand it and paint the whole house. You will never notice that they blew it in. That's got to be more significant, less expensive than putting the stucco over the outside of your house, because the stucco is a labor intensive process. It's a three coat process. You got to put paper, lath. You got to make sure your siding is all strong and stable to be able to handle it. You don't want it to be moving because it'll crack your stucco. So normally, I'm an architect, when we do cement, plaster, or stucco, we have a solid plywood base that the stucco is going on. If you're trying to put it over an existing siding, I don't know if your stucco guy is going to guarantee that the stucco is not going to crack, because he doesn't know anything about the siding and the framing and everything behind it. You get any small little movement in your house from just settling in age, your stucco could crack, and now you have a really horrible condition where water intrusion, it doesn't look good and everything. And that, no. So I gotta believe doing the blown insulation is a much more cost-effective solution. It will give you the thermal value. It will give you sound control. You'll still retain the look on the outside of the house. And then when you do your siding on the backside, if it's a siding that you were showing, we're not going to see a ton of it, and you'll know it's wood siding, but it'll still have the character and charm of wood to wood, just like your original design intent.
Thank you, Member Walter. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, then we'll close that part of the public hearing and move to deliberations. Do we have any discussion? I know we've had a lot of discussion during the Q&A period.
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Well, I would ask one question. Does the addition have to have wood siding? Are there other alternatives, since it can look different than the original, that might look better?
Can I do a non-wood siding? Could I do a non-wood siding that would match in terms of the like looking a little bit more similar, so it doesn't look like an eyesore from the street? Like, I don't know, there's probably all different kinds of paneling that besides wood, because this one, the problem with this one is to have it custom made is going to cost like a fortune, right?
Yeah, well, wood is expensive. There's no question.
Right. But maybe I could do a different type of siding that would match up and maybe not look like such an eyesore.
Or be complementary. Todd, you do architectural facade work in your business. What would be complementary to that in a historical setting?
Well, wood would be the ideal configuration. It's just looking for siding that's more on hand, that's not custom. And I don't know, without the contractor that you have, I don't know his experience with dealing with historic homes and so forth, be able to find other types of siding that's available without having to make it custom made. So we put a man on the moon and we're trying to get to Mars. I gotta believe we can find siding that's stock and it's readily available at a cost-effective solution that would give you what you want to do. So that's really more kind of a homework assignment from the contractor. I have to say that, and again, part of this is my own personal preference. I'm not a big fan of stucco. It's a very kind of ubiquitous, vast material that goes on really easy. And if it's not treated well from an architectural element, it could look like a big concrete box with some windows in it. So I'm not a big fan of a lot of homes that do 2-story stucco and they just do all of it in stucco. It just doesn't look very charming. It has to be done in a thoughtful manner. So putting stucco on the backside of it, to answer your question, Laura, that would be something we'd have to look to see if a different material that extreme to wood is acceptable as part of the Secretary's interior, or if it still has to be complementary, just not the exact same size and shape.
Yeah. So again, I think we're a couple of points I wanted to cover, and then I think we should finish our discussion and make a motion. I appreciate Member Blake's suggestion about the blown-in insulation. I've actually had that done on a house from the outside, literally in a day, very little cleanup. Very cheap. It was much cheaper than any other insulation possibility. And it was done through a shingle-sided house from the 1905, and tremendous benefits. So I do think that is actually probably more cost-effective for the insulation piece. In terms of the siding, I think your contractor may not be as familiar with resources, because I have an 1870s house and I have an 1890s house with siding, one which is 1.5 inch and one which is, again, 1870s, which is about the same size as yours. And it's actually milled. There's plenty of old houses that are using it. So it's off the shelf. It's not custom. And you can actually buy it in larger pieces. So they look like the original siding, but they're actually 3 layers. So instead of having all the work of putting them on, they actually come in these, very cost-effective boards that you can put on. And in terms of, I do think there's a disconnect here in that the city is going to require you to have that addition be different, right? You can't actually make it match. So I think part of your desire to have it match, you can make it look similar, right? So it can be, an inch different or a different style, whatever, but it actually can't match. And that's, I think, and when we approved the addition previously, that was one thing that was covered, was you actually had to pick a siding that was different.
I understand. You may be right. Maybe my contractor, doesn't know enough about siding, and maybe I have to revisit that with him, and maybe there's some other alternative out there that is closer. My concern was, he comes to me with this piece of siding, I'm holding it up to my house thinking, oh, this is going to look ridiculous. And all my neighbors are going to be super upset with me. They're all like thanking me for increasing the value of their home. And then the first house right off Winchester, making the rest of them look, really bad. And so that's my concern.
Right. So no, I appreciate that. But again, I think we've given good solutions here that are going to actually fulfill the guidelines, the Secretary guidelines. I'm very sensitive to the cost. I have old homes. I'm very sensitive to the cost of maintaining them is hard, let alone adding to them. And I think these, these ideas will be cost effective, which is the most important thing, and be quick. That's the other thing too. You've obviously mentioned the time issues and family issues in getting this done. And I think actually, frankly, it'd be done quicker. And I do have a stucco house too. And just as Member Walters said, I have to repair the stucco every 2 years because it cracks. And it's a huge expense. So I don't have the visual problem with stucco, but I find it, I mean, my wood house, the same wood that was put here in the 1870s, and it's still here and it's doing great. It's just a little pain every once in a while. So just my 2 cents on that. But again, appreciate all your time on this, and appreciate the significant issues that you're going through. And one of the things that we try to do is make sure that while we maintain the integrity of our houses in Campbell, that we provide solutions, not just, no, you can't do this, but here's a way you can do it that may be better and maybe cheaper and maybe just as fast or faster. So I'm hoping that some of these ideas you can explore, and you may need to find a contractor who's got, for these particular things, it's got some other skills, because I have found that there are contractors not used to working on old houses who their only MO is to go to the rip it off and put new on, right? And obviously, that's you don't want to do that with a historic home. So anyway, those are my comments. I turn it back to the board. I think we're ready for a motion at this point, unless there are any other talking points.
Just one word. You're welcome to contact me if you want to get some more information on what we did with our house with the blown insulation. So.
All right. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I can make a motion here. I'm just looking for the one.
I think it's
page 23.
Existing to replace with stucco as part of the ongoing. Is this motion? Am I reading this one? Let's see here.
Should be the one that references attachment 1 on page 23.
Oh, yeah, it's adopt the resolution denying modification. Is that the correct one?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution to adopt a resolution denying a modification to PLN-2021-23 to a previously approved Tier 1 Historic Resource Alteration Permit PLN-2020-12.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Blake,
Aye.
Board Member Moore,
Aye.
Vice Chair Walter,
Aye.
Chair Folks,
Aye.
4-0.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming, and hopefully we look forward to a beautiful project and it getting completed, which I know is probably the most important thing for you.
In a timely manner.
Exactly. So we'll now move on to item number 4, old business, the Mills Act ad hoc subcommittee report and program update. So we have several attachments here in the packet, and does the subcommittee have a monthly update it would like to give us?
Sure, I'll jump in. So yes, there are 3 documents that we have sent to you guys that are in your packet. One is the draft of the frequently asked questions. One is about the kind of primary categories. And then the third document was our suggested Millsack additions that we created last year that I updated each category based on our September of 2020 meeting with kind of a little synopsis. And we'd like to kind of walk through these 3 documents with everybody to get some updated input from the rest of the board, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, you want to do the frequently asked questions, Susan?
Sure. How'd you know I pulled that puppy up? Okay, so this is the revisions. And then Todd's comments that he added are in italics. So if you have the copy in front of you in some way or shape, I have a hard copy. I'm going to have to figure out how do you guys look at this online in the meeting? Okay, is there a way to look at the agenda online? Yes, you're shaking your head.
There is.
Yeah,
You just have to put it in
yeah.
front of the Zoom screen. So you have it, so you can't see the people's faces. You can just see the.
Oh,
Yeah. Or if if this goes on for the rest of our life, you might want to just get another monitor.
oh
You can have, like, my office.
Yeah.
At home at work, I have 2 monitors, so I have one on each screen, so I can look at multiple things at the same time.
Okay, so anyway, first question is, who may apply for the Millsack? The way I answered it was any property owner whose home is listed on the city's historic resource inventory. I wanted to keep it short and simple. Second question, what is the historic resource inventory? The City of Campbell's historic resource inventory includes the City Council designated historic properties that are of important historical value to the city. Next question was one that Todd put in. How does a property owner get on the historic inventory? Discussion. So Todd, you kind of played with that some more. Did you? I don't have what you're.
No, because I didn't. Just realized we didn't add it in here in terms of the actual verbiage,
Yeah.
so that we can see that. But I can pull it up to look at it.
Yeah, I pulled it off of another document, that the old frequently asked questions trifold that we had, and then also that 1-page color flyer that we sent out to realtors, and that it gets answered there. But then we wanted to shorten it, and I think that's what you did, was shorten it.
Yeah, so let me see if I've got my verbiage here.
If you can't find it, maybe we should just move on. I mean, I don't, people are.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just do. Oh, here's one. I wrote, a property can be nominated to be on the HRI by one of the following means: by the City Council, Civic Improvement Commission, Planning Commission, Community Development Director, or upon application of the property owner. Once the property has been nominated, the application process goes through a series of reviews within the city's commissions, and final is either approved or denied by the City Council. If approved by the City Council, the property will be placed on the HRI.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one was, what are the benefits of having a Mills Act contract on the home? And I wrote substantial property tax reduction. Mills Act contracts follow the property. The contract is transferred to a change in ownership if the contract is still in effect. Next question was in italics, and that is what we want to discuss tonight. How can an applicant find out how much tax savings they will receive? Discussion. So
I think for tonight's meeting, we should skip that one. That's going to be the kind of final culmination of our document, is that, because that's going to take a little, we get some more homework just to go through and do some sample calculations based on different home values that we were going to show to the council, so they can see the, what the impact or lack of impact that the tax savings is on. But it was something to put in here as a discussion if we wanted to include the frequently asked questions, to have that covered as well.
next one, when can a property owner apply for a Mills Act contract? This is also something for discussion. We had talked about doing it just once a year or perhaps 2 times a year. And Chair Folks, you had just had, I think, some comments previously about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and I'm not really wedded to 1 or 2, but I do like the fact that it's not a rolling thing, so that people have to get their applications in and we can kind of compare. Again, assuming, let's hope in the future we have three applicants for one contract, that we're not just giving it to the first applicant, we're giving it to the one we think is best.
Okay. Did you get that, Todd?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one, how long does a contract last? Discussion, 1 or 2 tiered. And I put that down because that was a significant area of discussion previously, whether there should be the existing ongoing that automatically gets renewed, or should we have one that is for a specific amount of time, and then like say 10 years based on the kinds of projects that the applicant has said they're going to use the Mills Act for. The concern I think that Daniel brought up was staff's time in monitoring stuff. I think this was one of them, but I don't remember right now. Daniel, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of duration, I mean, if future contracts are term limited, I mean, that is something that we can accommodate. I mean, a number of our permits already are term limited for periods of 5 years or 10 years. I mean, in fact, I mean, I'm getting reminders of permits expiring that I processed 10 years ago. So we can certainly accommodate that for the Mills Act. That's not an issue.
Permits. But the purpose of the Mills Act is to save our inventory. It isn't something that we only want to save it for 10 years. We want to save this inventory, and we lose it every year. So limiting it when I am constantly doing stuff to my house, constantly, and I'm sure anyone with an old house is constantly doing something to their house. I don't see any point in saving a house for 10 years and then saying the next person doesn't have to save their house, basically.
Yeah, and Laura,
we are designating.
Yeah, I understand that viewpoint, and I guess for me, it's because we have so few Mills Acts. Because my thought on this is actually the same as yours, which is want to save as many houses as possible. But if we only have 6, or we only have 10, we only have 12, right? We don't want to just save 12 houses, right? We want to save more.
We want to save more.
Right. And my thought is, if they're recyclable, basically, and this gets to the math too. I mean, it has to work out, and I haven't run the math on it, but I think the idea is you're a homeowner, you have a historic, shingled roof, and you want to rip it off and put on tar and gravel, but you really would love to put on shingles. It just, but they have to be fireproof. They have to have up to code. It's super expensive. And it would make no sense to do that, except if you were getting, much of that cost back in terms of tax saving. Right. But it's really kind of a one-time thing. And otherwise your house is basically the same maintenance that we all have, right, with our old houses. I'd love to be able to have more Mills Acts to encourage that to happen, which is really a one-time huge expense that then they get a portion or a bunch of it back in tax savings. And if it's tied up in another house that frankly did all that heavy lifting before and has just done maintenance for the last 20 years, but it's holding on to that Mills Act so we can't reuse it. That's my worry, is that I'm trying to get them to recycle.
I don't know how many houses we have left, but with the number that we have, it's not really going to increase, it's decreasing. So I don't really see the need for a limit, because somebody still has to be committed to a Mills Act in order to take the time to apply. And yes, we'd like to encourage everyone to go ahead and get a Mills Act, but that's not going to happen. We will get a certain number of people. If the city wants to limit it, fine. Some cities do, some cities don't, but we want to save our inventory. And I don't see limiting it. I did put one of those roofs on my house. I thought it was a forever roof. I am probably going to have to redo my shingle roof again. I fortunately have Prop 13, and hopefully that sticks around. Otherwise, I would need a Mills Act to keep doing stuff like this. It adds up.
Well, we have to remember too that the contract right now is minimum 10 years per the Mills Act. And we can't, unless I missed something in our previous conversation, we can't change that. The city can, the day one of the contract, they can then issue a notice to the owner saying that, hey, in 10 years, we're going to forego this contract. So then that limited time is 10 years. So at a minimum, it's going to last 10 years. After that, then it's really dependent on the city, the contract, what they're planning on doing, and what we're going to do. And I don't know if someone comes in that has a roof project and somebody has maintenance stuff, if we can say, hey, well, you people have the roof, we're going to only do it for 10 years because once you do the roof, there's nothing else, versus the other people who have maintenance, we're going to let you go on for 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know legally how that works.
Everyone is going to have everything to do. There's nothing that you're free of. It's maintenance, it's everything. It's pipes, it's plumbing, it's electrical. I mean, they're going to switch everything from PG&E. I think Susan's putting in an electrical water heater. I mean, there are so many things constantly going on. It is costing money every month. Something new, some new project. I just don't see that anyone is only going to have to do a roof in 10 years. I just see a multitude of projects, and people like to keep their houses up. And if you get people into a house because they love it and they have figured out a way to hang on to it and not have to move away to, Oregon or something, keep them here, keep them in their home. It's the same thing as a Prop 13. Keep people in the home they love and let them continue to love it by doing the things that it needs to maintain it.
Well, we haven't come to a consensus on this item yet. We have more
Yep.
to chew on.
Let's go on to the next one.
The next question is, are there any drawbacks to having the Millsack contract? And this is an item for discussion. I couldn't think of any, but perhaps you guys can.
Aren't we adding in here the annual report to the city, which is required in the contract now, but we're going to make people actually do it?
Yes, that's a different thing. That's a different, and I didn't put it under a drawback. I put it under like how are they monitored? How are the contracts monitored? So I made it a different question.
That's the last item on the frequently asked questions, that particular item.
Right. I just think if I'm a homeowner, I mean, the reason that homeowners haven't done them, most of them, is because they don't want to do them. So I think people, right? I mean, it's kind of like filing your taxes, right? Nobody wants to do it because it's even if you don't pay anything, it's just putting all the paperwork together. So to me, that would be a drawback. As long as we have it here, I think if we say no, that's not quite accurate.
What would the possibility of having the Millsack person come in once a year to a specific Millsack meeting where we could get updated on what's been going on, so we have more of a connection to the Millsack? And we passed it a couple of years ago and we have zero connection to it except for what we're trying to do now. Maybe there's a way to keep a connection going with.
I do have a connection with Sacramento, and she did offer to come down and work with us if we needed more assistance, but she doesn't. She just gives you it from the state's perspective, and each city has its own take, which is why Todd and I have been doing all this research to see how various cities are doing stuff. So but we can go there when it's the right time, or if we feel like we need to do it.
Or could we have a Millsack meeting with people that have a Millsack in, like we used to have that annual get together and share resources? Maybe we could have an annual Millsack get together and see how it's going, and maybe give different people that are using the Millsack and come up with the resources again, just like you offered the blown insulation resource to that couple tonight. Maybe there is a way to share resources and keep us connected to the people that have Millsacks, so we're not so disconnected from the process.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's a good idea. So we can follow up on that. The application fee, I thought we came to an agreement that it would be $1,500. Does that sound right based on people's memories from before?
That's the current one. I mean, we haven't finalized on the new one if it's going to stay 1,500 or
right. But we went going back and forth on, how much. So,
And I forgot, and that you probably covered this in an earlier meeting, but is that number, Daniel, based on any current staff time calculations, or that's just a historic number? It's always been that number.
It should be based on some calculation. The city conducted a comprehensive fee analysis, I think about 3 years ago, for all of our application types. So we actually went through an exercise with the consultant identifying how many hours on average every application takes. And then we told the council that this is what it costs in terms of staff time, and provide a recommendation of what we should charge. So single family applications, and probably the Millsack too, do incorporate a level of subsidy. So I imagine the actual staff time exceeds that number, but it was a policy decision by the council to reduce it, to make it more of an encouragement.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's similar to how our tree removal permits are actually free, even though it costs staff time and resources, but we want to encourage people to apply for them and not just remove trees illegally.
We might want to, Susan, we may not want to put the actual dollar amount per se. I mean, I know it's handy, but if it changes at some point, then we got to go around and look for where this document is located to then change that number, because if it goes to 16.
Just say yes.
Well, I mean, I think we can, I think it's because people are going to want to know how much this cost. I don't know if we just say, hey, contact the city for exact dollar amounts, or I don't know, something.
Okay.
Yeah, although, I mean, if this is in the FAQs, which obviously we should be updating pretty regularly, I guess to me, the point of the FAQ is I want somebody to read through this and get them excited about, hey, I meet this, I have that, this looks good, right? To get them to commit. I think the worry about not putting the fee in is, I mean, I might put the $1,500, which, is approximate cost of the administration of the right or whatever. So they understand it's just cost recovery. But I think it's helpful, because if it said, who knows, right, then I think you could get people who start reading through these FAQs and just say, well, it's not worth it. I have no idea what the city's going to charge me. Or maybe they think it's a percentage of the value of the house or something. They just bought a house for $2 million and they don't want to, right? So I guess to me, I agree with you on the updating piece, but, my goal, I think, on these documents is that we get people who read it and it's so transparent that they feel like, oh my gosh, I want to do this Millsack thing because I'm going to qualify. I've got a really good story to tell. It matches all the criteria here. And, and yes, it'll cost me $1,500, but at least I know that's the fee.
Yeah.
Well, we can put $1,500 and then in parentheses or something, we can say as of 2021 or whatever, just so that they realize that, hey, it might, or it could say, hey, this dollar might change, contact the city for current, pricing or whatever. So at least they know that that's at minimum, it's going to be 1,500. It's only going to be more, something like that, if we want to.
Okay, I'll play with that one. Next one is do additions, no dollars. Oh my God. Do additions qualify under the Mills Act? No. Do solar panels qualify under the Mills Act? No. What does qualify under the Mills Act? I want my dogs to go away. And you said various exterior maintenance and repair projects. An applicant can review the proposed list within a sample contract from the city. So that lets the person who's reading this know that there is a list of, not real specific, but some specific categories, structural integrity, exterior architectural integrity, and then secondary category, just some suggestions for things that we look for when we want to get somebody to do it. So the next one is, are there any guidelines available? Yes, the City of Campbell Historic Design Guidelines for Residential Buildings is available online through the Planning Department. The next one is, how are Millsack's contracts monitored? And I said, property owners are required to submit yearly documentation with copies of receipts for work completed to the county, to Santa Clara County and the city of Campbell. The city will make on-site visits at least 4 times during a 10-year interval. Anybody want to weigh on that one? Daniel?
I mean, I have no particular comment on that. I mean, I think that's fine. It's pretty
Mike,
clear.
did that make it specific enough in terms of what the responsibility is of the property owner to provide documentation?
Yeah, it needs to be clear that there's that expectation that people provide annual documentation that is not something that we simply are going to give and then forget about moving forward.
Right.
Yeah, it's required. Okay. All right.
And obviously these frequently asked questions, these aren't necessarily the final format and the verbiage, because once we finalize the actual contract, we got to come back to this and tweak the language in here so that it dovetails with the final contract. So these are kind of going back and forth.
All right, so the other item that I worked on was suggestions for revised list of conditions of approval. And you can just check. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, if it works for you, if there's stuff I should take out or stuff I should add.
Before you go there, Susan, I just want to find out from the rest of the board members if they have any other comments or any additional frequently asked questions they think we should add. No? All good?
Well, chew on it and get back to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now? All right.
Yeah, thank you.
So Todd added some things here. This is just like a week ago. There's 2 primary categories, structural integrity and then exterior architectural integrity. And there's just a list of things under both. And again, Todd put his in italics. Todd, you said you had a question here. Where is it? Oh, examples. No, where is it? You said something about porches. Oh, I know, under driveway. No, wait, porches.
It's under the second column, under exterior architectural integrity.
And you said, what about them? And so, but over here, you added, under structural integrity examples, you added porches. So.
Right, well, because under the structural integrity, if the porch is falling down because of the foundation and the drywall, and et cetera, but under the architectural side of it, porches might have embellishments of trim and other features. So I just put porches, what about them in terms of, is it just carte blanche that whatever a porch you get, you can identify every single thing, or do we want to have some more clarity of what that envisions?
Well,
unless we're fine with saying, hey, porches, and then as part of the application, they have to give us a little bit more. I mean, again, these are kind of big picture items.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say roofing, they have to kind of explain to us what it is that they're planning on doing on roofing. Is it that you're replacing the roofing? Are you replacing the plywood sheathing underneath it? You're replacing framing? You have to kind of go down and give us enough explanation. So same thing with porches under architectural integrity. What is it that you're doing with the porch from an architectural integrity component versus a porch under the structural integrity?
Okay, we can tweak that.
Yeah. So I guess I'm thinking about all the problems I have in my porches, and so I'm looking at the structural integrity seems to cover all the bad things, right? The dry rot, the drainage, foundations, which I assume settling is covered under foundations.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be kind of your porch is falling apart. And then I look at the exterior architectural, as to your point, it's all the trim and the kind of all the prettiness about them, right? That you want to maintain or restore. So I can see kind of porches under both, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
I think, like I said, if we set it up this way, we kind of get big picture items. And then in the contract or in the application, we have to identify that we want them to give us more detailed information for each of these pieces. so
Yeah.
that we understand what it is that they're doing. So when they give us the cost estimates, we can see why XYZ work is really expensive or not very expensive, depending on what their scope of work is.
So as part of the application form, when they answer that needs to be made very clear that if you are going to do this to the porch or you're going to do this to the roof, tell us what it is you're going to do specifically.
Right,
Okay.
I think so, yeah. I'm adding that note on my copy right here, so we don't
Okay.
forget.
And then the secondary category, insulation, heating, and air conditioning. I think it was you, Michael, that brought up the trees, protected trees. But we had a further discussion about, we have a separate tree ordinance and whether or not we want to include that under secondary category here or not.
Yeah, the only reason I was suggesting is because, I mean, I'll spend as much in a year on heritage trees as I will on home. So if you have a house, I mean, and you guys have some big trees, so I just, to me, it kind of like I look at that as basically if you keep your trees maintained, especially old heritage trees, you'll preserve them, and if you don't, eventually they'll blow over in the wind or just die of neglect. So
Or hit your house.
right, or hit your, yeah, exactly.
Or my house.
To me, you know, I wouldn't be a primary thing, but the reason I think it's helpful to put it on here is a homeowner might not think of the fact that, oh, I've got a 200-year-old oak tree in the backyard. This Millsack, like me maintaining that tree actually helps qualify me. So it just, to me, seemed like the tree ordinance doesn't give you any cash. It just says you can't cut them down or disfigure them, right?
Okay.
Are we allowed to put trees and landscaping as part of the Mills Act?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I would say that
I would think it would.
I would agree if our historic preservation ordinance covered landscaping. But our historic preservation ordinance doesn't protect landscaping. I mean, I know a handful of cities do, they have historic landscaping features, but that's not really the case here.
No.
So it may be a little too far outside of what would be normal repair and maintenance for the structure itself.
But maybe historic trees, because they are a separate entity.
They are, but as Chair Folks indicated, heritage tree designation is really about protecting the tree in a very long-term perspective. I mean, you have a homeowner who has this tree, they want to protect it beyond their own ownership of the property. And so that's actually a way to do it. You get approval, you allow the city to record a covenant that this is a heritage tree, and that now moving forward into the future, it can only be removed in certain circumstances. So that basically protects that tree well beyond whenever you may sell the property. But that's a different.
Well, the Window Lee property had a 400-year bay laurel tree on it that was basically killed because it was not taken care of properly. I think that's a travesty, and I think we should give it more teeth.
I'm fine. I'm all for that. I just want to make sure that we're compliant. So I don't know all the ins and outs. So I don't know if Mills Act allows the trees. So that's what we'd have to get some clarification from legal or from whomever that says that that we can do that.
The tree on that property was as historical as the house. I mean, it was there. It saw everything that transpired in this valley for 400 years. So it is a shame that it's gone.
And we're all in favor of it, Laura. We're just trying to find out legally, can we do that?
Yeah.
If legally we can add trees to the Mills Act, great. Then we'll do it. My understanding is right now landscaping and site work was not allowed under the Mills Act, at least in our current ordinance.
I think it would be worth looking at to see if heritage trees. I'm not looking at garden walkways or things like that. I was pretty much just looking at heritage trees.
Right. That's why back up under architectural integrity, I put fences and gates, ? Should we historic item? Because there are historic gates and fences, because if it was part of the original structure, someone might say, hey, that fence is 300 years old, so I need to maintain it. So again, it was a question. I don't remember if the Mills Act allows everything that's not attached to the house to be part of it.
Right, right.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know this is as much a legal issue, just going back to that Millsack seminar we all watched. I mean, the experts that talk seem to have a lot of leeway, right, on what gets covered and what doesn't. So I don't think anyone's going to challenge the tree part or the fences. I think it's really more, to me, it's more the, these are examples of things you want to put in your application if you are in fact going to be
Right.
improving and maintaining them. Although I would say I don't really get the driveway. Like that's the only one I looked at. I thought, what historic driveway would be really
Well, okay, so in the design guidelines, there is a section on driveways where I'm trying to think of the name of it is called a Hollywood driveway, where they had
Grass down the middle.
either dirt or bricks or something, a strip down
Yeah.
the middle, and then cement on either
Right.
side. And there are some houses in Campbell that have that. And the design guidelines have a section about how to maintain and do that kind of stuff. So that's why I put it in there.
It sounds like that would be included if it was part of that property.
Well, again, it just goes to that question about landscape. Anything that's not touched, that's not touching the structure, can we make it part of it? And that's whatever it is not attached. In my mind, it needs to be some historical significance. I mean, it has to be like the original driveway, the original fence, the original gate, the original trees. You know, it's not something that was added, 30 years later and so forth. So those are things that we'll have to make sure we define as we go further. When we say driveways, other elements, we will have to explain in our documents that these things are all have to be, part of the original component, not just, oh, I have a driveway, I want a Millsack so I can fix my driveway. And again, that's the language we'll choose.
Security cameras. I'm going to need security cameras
Exactly.
too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then,
Well,
I added
protect the property.
right. And then I added the interior work that constitutes a life safety issue, because right now we're really not dealing with interiors. But if someone comes back and says, hey, I need to do this inside the building, the house, because my roof's going to fall down, or, it's my plumbing or something is attached to all the framing and I need to go inside the house and do something on these walls or whatever. Again, it's a case-by-case basis that they'd have to submit and show to us that it's appropriate for what they're requesting.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments on this from anybody?
I'd say because properties are unique, some of the items might be a case-by-case basis. Not sure.
Oh yeah, well, they're all going to be case-by-case basis because they're applying for it based on their needs and how much they're going to spend and their, whatever else was listed in our criteria basis. All right.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to go to the last document. This is the suggested Mills Act additions that we talked about back in September. And I'm going to go kind of quickly through it since it's almost 7 here. And these are under each category, you'll see in bold the date of 9/29/20 and HPB response. That's what I typed in here, identifying what I went back into our notes that we discussed. So I'm going to quickly go through it. And if you agree or disagree or have other further comments, please shout out so that we can update this. So we kind of have this as our living document to kind of move forward. All right, item 1, fees. Yes, a fee should be included, but there was discussion if the current fee of $1,500 was too high, adequate, or too low. It was tabled to discuss another day. Again, I'm not going to go further. We can talk later more about this when we get to the very end of our whole contract and all the changes. We can come up with a final determination of what that fee should be. And obviously, Daniel and the city will have to weigh in on that. So that might come from city council anyways. Number 2, application deadline. Yes, a deadline should be appropriate. It was suggested maybe 2 a year. And jump in if you guys have a question. Number 3, frequent asked questions. Yes, we agree doing this, and we just went over that list. Number 4, contract duration. This is a topic is ongoing discussion. Some members feel that the duration should be based on the project list submitted by the applicant. So there is a sunset on the contract. Further discussion will be needed to finalize this item. Again, we don't have time tonight to go through all of that, but again, we'll continue that discussion until we formalize something on that. Number 5, HRI. Yes, HPB agrees with this requirement. Number 6, approval process. Yes, HPB agrees with this suggestion and the pre-inspection process. Number 7, requirements of approval. Yes, HPB agrees and subcommittee to work up a list, but not too specific for further review by HPB. And that's what we just went over tonight with Susan's list of the primary categories. And so that's what we're kind of envisioning there. Number 8, rehabilitation maintenance plan. Yes, HPP agrees with this suggestion. Number 9, priority consideration. Yes, HPP agrees. Need to work on the final consideration list for HPP and City Council to review. Include fire life safety issues as a consideration. Subcommittee to work up initial list to review. Number 10, oversight. Yes, HPP agrees with the contract should include pre-inspection annual documents from the applicant and a 5-year inspection at a minimum. Number 11, what features does the contract cover? HPD suggested we include the heritage trees to the program, and the contract should address the exterior of the structure only. Interior features should only be considered if they constitute a life safety related issue. Number 12, is an architect engineering report required? HPD agrees, but it was suggested that the report is only required if the applicant is selected. Then they would provide the report. This way they are not spending additional money if they're not selected. Everybody still agree with that one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Number 13, maximum number of contracts. Yes, a cap would be ideal, but since we have so little now, it may be a discussion by the city council on how many will be allowed, not how many, sorry. How many will be allowed. 14, pre-application workshop. We all thought that was not necessary, so we'll scratch that. Number 15, electronic submittal. Yes, we ever agreed about that. Application package checkoff list. Yes, this makes sense. 17, attachments. Yes, that makes sense. And the final one, 18, other. Suggest reviewing potential costs and savings on a typical application to see what the true costs are. This would also help the city council understand the benefits of this program to homeowners and the city. So, 2 questions I have, or 1 question, 1 comment. Comment first is number 18. I just talked about, was that number 18? Number 18, that is our next kind of big homework assignment, is to work up some sample cost comparisons that show the tax savings benefit based on a variety of different home prices here in Campbell. So we have some information to provide to the city council to say, hey, this is what it's going to, you can expect to see, current, future, etc. So we'll work on that and pass it out so we can have discussion. And then a big question for me is, now that we kind of have a roadmap and we have these other items in here, in terms of the actual taking this and turning it into the revised contract agreement, et cetera, Daniel, do we move forward and go back and then Susan and I work up each section, write up everything the way we think would be appropriate? Or do we now need to have this be kind of reviewed with city council / legal to then actually redraft up the changes so that it has everything else the city would want to have in the documents?
So a couple of things. First off, just in terms of the broader context right now, there's a lot of good work, but recall too that the Mills Act update and what that entails, that's being forwarded to the council for consideration as a formal work plan item. So given the city's dire fiscal state at the moment, there is always a possibility that the council may elect not to proceed any further with this issue for the foreseeable future. I don't know, but that's still an option. But assuming that doesn't happen, the missing piece that we still need to work through, and a lot of this is really on me, is to pick up on the work of our former intern, which is to actually review all the materials that were provided by the existing contract holders in terms of their receipts and other documentation to substantiate really their expenditures relative to their contract. Because that's really what kicked this whole thing off, was to really get a sense of where we stand today. Now, the plan was to go to the council with the results of that audit and indicate, that the program is working or it's not, and if it's not, it needs some improvement. But then also at that meeting, seek authorization to formally do what we want here, to actually create a more comprehensive ordinance for the Mills Act that does all the things that we're discussing. And I think those two things really need to go hand in hand, as well as a request to increase the number of contracts. So until we really get through the audit of those existing materials, there's really not the ability for us to get to a council meeting. Plus, right now, honestly, the council agenda is going to be pretty busy, I think, in the next few months with a lot of budgetary issues as it is.
When will they either approve or whatever their work plan items, what things they are going to allow to have happen? Is that going to happen anytime soon?
That's typically part of the budget adoption. If I'm recalling correctly, that should happen around May, maybe June.
Oh my.
It might be earlier. So I think there's some consideration of trying to get that budget going earlier because of the severe deficit. But yeah, that's kind of where we are. But that's not to say that we can't necessarily get to a council meeting if there's availability, and that's also dependent on the new community development director. So, I mean, as I informed the board, Paul Cremonian is retiring at the end of March. So his successor will also need to be on board on whatever action the board wants to take.
Are there people being interviewed?
Shortly, the position, I believe, closed last Friday. So now Human Resources needs to go through all the applications and figure out who warrants an interview. So that process does also take some time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's necessarily going to be a new director appointed immediately upon Paul's departure, or if there's going to be an interim period. But the new director will have certainly a lot of say in what we do.
So question then on that note is, at least from the work that Susan and I have been working on this, should we put this on hold for a little bit and then come back to helping you with the audit review?
I think the audit review is, the audit review is the thing that's holding us up. Because without that, we can't really answer that principal question of, is the program working, and then identify kind of what needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree. And, and it's complicated, right? To really try to unwind that. So that seems like it's a lot of work. So it'd be good to have, Daniel, if you had some help with that.
Yeah, and that was the intent all along. It was just that the intern was helping the process, but he's now obviously, along with everything else, gone. So if I make a suggestion that, and if you agree with this also, Susan, that we'll update from our little notes that we have tonight on these documents now, so at least we have them in place. And let's turn our attention now over to the audit and work with Daniel and see how we can assist him, however that may be, whether it's one property at a time, the three of us looking for various information, or whether or not each of us handle something different and each handle a different property. But if it's okay with both of you, we'll kind of follow your lead, Daniel, and you let us know what you want us to kind of look at, which property and things like that will help you along the way.
Sure. So I'm just writing myself a note so I don't forget tomorrow. Yeah, I think a lot of this is really kind of creating a standardized format. I know we tried to do that with the letter that we sent. We try to have people provide that information in a standardized format in the spreadsheet, but unfortunately, so many people didn't have all the receipts or missing documentation. So For the receipts that we do have, I think I'm imagining it's a matter of just creating like an Excel sheet for each property where it identifies the date, the cost of the expense, and what the expense was. And for those properties where they don't have receipts, because if you recall, a lot of those materials were provided to the county and the owners felt that their obligation was fulfilled, and I guess, understandably,
Sure.
and they destroyed those existing materials. So some of those things we're going to need to see if we can reverse engineer by looking at our permit records. So anything that required a permit, we should have records for. It may need major plumbing work, electrical, anything like that. We should have permits, of course, if they did it with permits. I mean, there's some things like painting, they obviously wouldn't need a permit for. But I mean, again, I'm hoping that we can at least demonstrate that by and large, the homeowners have been spending money on their homes, and that's the idea. We don't want anyone who hasn't been spending money. So that's the next big step, really.
But Daniel, it also seems to me if there's a house that's been under Millsack for 20 years and you do a walkthrough and the place is falling apart, right? I mean, whether they have receipts or not, that kind of answers the question, right, of whether they're fulfilling their contract.
It does. And part of the audit was to actually do in-person inspections of each house, but COVID, put a stop on that, unfortunately. But yes, that was going to be the other side of it, because that would help visually demonstrate the state and condition of the home.
Well, if I may make a suggestion, I was going to say, make a suggestion to kind of jump in on this. Why don't we do this, Daniel? From my memory, and unless Susan remembers one too, I think as an example, Yvonne Kendall's packet was pretty thorough, I thought, in terms of having all the documentation. So we could take hers and or a similar property that has enough documentation that looks like how it should be. And we can, as a group, look at that, and I can help creating a spreadsheet that identifies kind of the structure of what we want it to look for, and then use one of those easier houses to fill in all the blanks that we kind of have a kind of a starting point. And then from there, use that for the other houses, and then then figure out how to reverse engineer whatever pieces that we're missing. So I'll volunteer to help, set up the spreadsheet and do all that, if that helps out making the process easier for you.
If I might add, one of the 4 homes that I was responsible for following up from the letter that was sent out asking for people to provide that information was on Catalpa. And I actually assisted the homeowner with his documentation and have a copy of it. We turned one into the city. He's got it additionally, and it is very well done as well. He had lots of receipts. He's just very visually impaired now. And so I had literally had to go through stuff with him and help him fill it out. But that would be perhaps another one that we might be able to use as a model for what we're looking at.
Sure.
And and then I did a walkthrough. I looked at everything he did. So.
Oh, okay.
Did you have photographs from that walkthrough?
No, I didn't. I felt like I was overstepping my bounds doing that. He just showed me, and he was very pleased, very proud to be able to show me what he had done. And
right. And that might be something.
I had no doubts about what I saw or why. Right. So.
Well, and that might be something we come up with in terms of a review. We may say that, hey, because of COVID, we can't do in-person inspection. Hey, homeowners, we're requesting you to send current pictures of all these elements, and then at least they can do that electronically. And that's an easy enough thing to do. And it all has a date stamp on it, so we know it's current. It's not from something years ago. So at least we get that. Obviously, anything on the exterior, we can drive by and just even walk by the sidewalk and look at it from afar, and at least. Yes. So I guess the main thing from the spreadsheet standpoint is I know Paul had some very specific things that he wanted. So if you want to, Daniel, when you get a moment, email me kind of generally the format of what you're thinking and what topics you want in the spreadsheet, and then I can do a draft and send it out, and we can share, look at it, and then pick a property and then jump in and start it.
That sounds good.
Okay.
All right, and while we're talking about Millsack, so we actually have we have 2 applications submitted. We have one for 51 Alice, and that's submitted and paid for. And then Mr. Chan at 73 South First. If you recall, that was a Millsack that had been previously submitted but withdrawn since he kind of got caught in this transition period between me and Cindy. So he has resubmitted his materials. He's simply pending payment. So we'll actually have 2 applications to consider. And we'll obviously have to do that in the context of what we have today. But I think there's still a lot of authority. I mean, because none of this is really codified in the city zoning code, it's simply policies that were drafted up. We're not necessarily bound by any past decisions. So looking at these applications, I think this whole discussion has been very informative. So I think we can do a pretty thorough job of evaluating this and providing a recommendation to the council. But if I could ask the board for the subcommittee's assistance in reviewing the materials. Quite frankly, Millsack applications are well outside my wheelhouse. I have 0 experience with this. So I would certainly welcome another couple sets of eyes on those materials and help form the recommendation to the board moving forward. If that's
that sounds like a great idea.
I could do that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Great. Thank you.
So just not to put more stuff on our plate, but just a couple of things I wanted to raise for future discussion, not that we have to talk about it now because it's late, is one is I noticed in Los Angeles County, they actually have some teeth in their ordinance. If you don't meet your requirement, you actually pay a penalty of 12.5% of your property tax as your Mills Act is canceled. So just to realize that there is an ability to also not just cancel the contract, but basically say, look, you're getting this big benefit from the taxpayer and you're not doing your end of the bargain. You have to, right.
That's already, I think that's already in our contract.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's part of it's under the breach of contract portion. So I think I remember seeing that somewhere where it already says that if they fail and whatever, but I don't remember the calculation amount.
The other thing, just that we may want to look at it again for the future, to Laura's point, I saw, because I just looked back at it while we were having this discussion, because the calculations are so strange. It's right, there's 3 numbers and you take the lowest of the numbers and that's your assessment. One of those numbers is Prop 13, right? And I've got to believe if you have a house that's under a Mills Act for 20 years, that Prop 13 number is going to be your lowest number. Right. If
you have Prop 13, you don't need a Mills Act.
Well, no. What I'm saying is everyone has Prop 13, right? I mean, Prop 13 applies to all properties. But when you first buy the property, Mills Act's going to save you a bunch of money, right? Because it's basically the value of like the rental value of the house or whatever. But over time, as the values of the houses go up and the house becomes more valuable, the Mills Act goes away really as a benefit, and you're still getting your Prop 13. You're basically back to Prop 13.
Right.
So that, maybe that's something we look at too, because unless they change Prop 13, once you get to that point, the Mills Act is doing nothing benefiting you, except you have to do all these requirements. Right. So
well, you don't get Prop 13 unless you purchased it before 1978.
No. Yeah, I get Prop 13 now, and I purchased this house in 2011.
How?
Because it can only go up 2% per year. It's limited.
How?
Yeah, Prop 13 is still in effect. It started in 1978, so everything changed after that. It's just the value of the houses are now just so astronomical, you don't feel like you're getting a benefit.
Right.
Correct. So after a period of probably 10, 15, 20 years, just due to inflation, I mean, your Mills Act contract is really no longer really valuable.
Right.
But, arguably is a reason to have, minimally, I mean, for every contract, some termination date of, no more than 20 years, because at that point, it's really redundant.
Well, that's an interesting caveat. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, right. Well, to Laura's point earlier, we want people to maintain their houses, but if they're not getting any tax benefit from it, they're just at that point they're going to do it out of the benefit of their heart anyway, right? They're not saving any money. So,
right. Well, and
it's no longer a selling point to a new property owner, right? That the Mills Act gets transferred.
Well, because actually, to the new think about it. The new property owner, is going to pay full market value. So it actually would be a benefit to the new one.
It would be a
Oh.
benefit to them.
Oh.
Big
Yeah.
benefit.
Every time the property changes hand, the new person, that's when they're paying the new property tax,
Right.
everything. They're just
Unless they
paying
have
it under a Prop 13 level, which is different than pre-Prop 13. So I put a note here, but one of the things we'll do is when I try my stab at the calculation of a Mills Act contract going for Mills Act, I will look at, and I'll figure this out if I can, or I'll ask some smarter people, how I then figure out the Prop 13 component in terms of how many years, because the city's going to want to know that too, as well as us, and say, hey, how
Yeah.
long should the contract go? That's a benefit to the owner, and then the Prop 13 kicks in and blah, blah, blah. So we can work on that and come up with some scenarios for discussion.
Good, I'm glad you could do that one. I can't do that one.
Well, I just said, you didn't hear me. I said, I'm going to ask some smart people to help me out too.
Don't look at me.
My brother's a CPA, does all my stuff. So
Oh, good.
I can
Good, that's good.
I can tap into him.
Good.
Ask him what kind of bourbon he likes.
He doesn't. That's the problem.
Oh.
All righty.
right.
Well, I thank you again for all that work. I know it was a lot. And again, I think we're making great progress. As Daniel said, I think I'm certainly understanding a lot more about this, and I'm going to feel, even if we haven't finished this work, a lot more comfortable looking at a Mills Act application now that we kind of have really a good sense, I think, collectively about this. So again, the hour being late, and we've talked about the public. Are there any other items people would like to put forward for a future agenda besides the stuff we've talked about?
Yes, I would. I would like to put forward all of the information on that Zeri Hamilton house on Hamilton Avenue. I've done a ton of research on it, and I would like to present it so that we can make sure that the house, once it will not even be visible anymore, will have a plaque and have the history attached to it. And I spoke with Carrie at the museum today, and she would like to put it in the museum information as well. The Hamiltons came from Missouri on those wagon trains with the Campbells, and Zeri Hamilton was married to, his wife was a Blackford, and Blackford sold their property to Ainsley. I mean, it's just so entwined with the earliest unincorporated days of Campbell. It really needs to be in there. So I'd like to present that at the next meeting.
Sure, that'd be great.
We can certainly include those materials as part of the Planning Commission packet when they review that proposal to move the house.
Okay.
Get it.
So when is the Planning Commission
I would like to
reviewing
know-
it?
I want to know when they're going to move the house, because I want to be there. I want to take pictures, and I want to write a story for the newspapers.
Yeah.
And the house, we have a house tour of the Ainsley house up online on the museum site, and they've gotten people from Florida. They have some college students in Oklahoma that are doing project on house museums. So COVID has added some interesting things to what we're doing. And it's just like our meetings now, it's different, but it's actually including people from further away to be a participant. People that like history, have more time on their hands, if they're lucky, to look at different places and different things. So the more information we can collect and have available in different formats, the better it is. People can now be, in Scotland and do a house tour of the Ainsley house. So it's an interesting time.
Cool.
And
I agree.
Very well done.
Yeah, I agree, Lauren. Having that stuff available to the public, I think, is critical. Because so many things get lost in folders and drawers and files, and right. So
Right.
Great. Well, no, we'll definitely talk about that. We actually just did touch on it before you got on in the meeting.
Right.
But
I missed it.
thanks for all that work. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the hour of 7:24 having arrived, why don't we go ahead and adjourn? And I look forward to seeing you all in a month.
Same here.
All right, thank you.
Good.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Night.
Bye.
Bye, doggy.
God,
7.
how do you get off? Go away. Go, go, go. Stop.